Hey YouTube, welcome back to another episode of Miles and Bodyweight Training. Today we're going to be talking about injury, more specifically how to train around injury, and I've also got a little update as to where my gymnastics is at the moment. So for now I'm just going to give you an update as to where my gymnastics is. I put together a little video for you guys just so you can see my progression of late. It's probably over the last couple of weeks, I think, since I showed. Yeah, I can't really remember when the last video I showed you had some gymnastics in it, but this one's going to have some gymnastics, so sit back and I hope you enjoy. So that's basically where I've been at for the last couple of weeks in terms of gymnastics. You probably would have noticed in the video that I'm doing less sort of handstandy stuff and more sort of somersaults. The simple reason for this is that a few weeks ago I picked up a wrist injury, and it was more or less like a sprain, sort of impact injury. Now, the idea of what I'm going to discuss today is training around injury, okay? Because when I got the injury, it's like, okay, this hurts, now what am I going to be able to do? And I'm a big believer on training around injuries, okay? Now, this doesn't mean if you get a wrist injury, you do whatever it was you do, but you pay special attention to it. Or if you've got a knee injury, you then, like, say, run slower or lighter, or you don't do as much. It means training something where that injury is not affected whatsoever. So I picked up the wrist injury and I was like, okay, this hurts. And I then said, okay, I'm going to need to rest this because it did swell. It was very painful to even do that. It was quite painful. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm just going to leave it for 5 days and see how I go and progress. There will be another video actually before I continue that covers what to do in the event of injuries and ideally how to prevent injuries, because no one likes them, they're rubbish. So yeah, that's going to be a separate topic, but just to fast forward in terms of how I then dealt with it is, okay, I needed to get back into training, because if I try to go without training for more than a week, I start to break down and cry. That's not true, partly. But anyway, so okay, what can I do? So the first thing was to assess what my wrist felt like under certain conditions. So I would go into sort of a push-up position, for instance, and I say, that's a little bit too much when I go into the full push-up position. So I'm going to avoid anything where my hands are in that sort of position. Then I was hanging around on some bars and rings, and I thought, okay, well, this actually doesn't hurt. Can I do a pull-up still? Yeah, I can do a pull-up, and there's zero pain there. So it gave me an idea of what I could try and achieve in my training. And of course, with this training that I'm doing now, it's actually an unlimited amount of resource. One of the things that was really important, and it's also like when you get an injury like this, it's actually quite helpful to think, now I can train a little bit more integral. So one of the things I massively did in the gymnastics, like the video you saw me, is I started practicing and drilling all my somersaults and backflips. And just like that, over 1 week, 2 weeks, I was getting so much better at these because because when I go to gymnastics, it's like a big playground, and being forced to not, take a lot of the stuff that you're doing out of the equation and focus on a very small amount of stuff, it means that the time that I was doing the training was more specific and more intense in just somersaults for a long time, or for 2 weeks, I guess. And then in the gym, the weight side of things, I was able to do pulls, and if anyone's seen anything on my Instagram, you will see me doing Japanese push-up, which actually loads up this part of your hand and not this part of the wrist, and you're not in much of a flex position. So I was like, okay, I can kind of still train the handstand, but it's just figuring out these things. Okay, so one of the things I want you to take home is to be really in tune with what's hurting and how it's hurting. Under what conditions is my pain? Where do I feel this pain? Now, if it's, let's say, like it was mine in the wrist, and I can pull, and then if you're thinking along the lines of, okay, this is actually going to be beneficial, because if I'm gripping something, it's actually strengthening up the damaged ligaments, and I'm getting blood flow to them. As soon as you start working any sort of body part, blood starts to flow, which increases the healing, or the time at which you need to heal. So I was like, okay, if I can do something where it doesn't aggravate my wrist, I feel no pain during the exercise or after, then I will do that. Okay, and it's obviously up to you guys to figure out where that is. Of course, I'm not a doctor, so I can't say go and train anything, because it really does depend on the injury. But something like a wrist, and obviously if you get a sprain in your ankle, that obviously affects walking, but that doesn't mean you can't do push-ups if you have a sprained ankle. You can still do something, and you can go to the gym and you can get worse. So I just want to leave it there about injury, and how to sort of train around it, and just give you a little idea into the proactive steps that I take around training around injury. The next bit that I want to jump to is, if you saw, which you probably did because you're watching this video, you would have seen the guy that I was training with in the gym. This is one thing that excites me, because that's Matt, a friend of mine who did compete as a gymnast from the age of 5, or was definitely training as a gymnast from the age of 5 to the age of, I think, 19 years old. He then stopped for just over 15 years, and that was his second session back. Okay, and it was an eye-opener for me, because I'm always trying to think like, what motor patterns do we learn and what do we never forget? And he hasn't really touched. I mean, he might do the odd handstand as a party trick here and there, but in terms of tumbling, he hasn't done that for God knows how many years. And then on the trampoline, he hasn't been, I'm sure, on one of those for a long time. And when we went the first session, which was the week before, he was instantly just remembering tricks. And there's actually, I don't think I have the footage, but there's footage of him on the parallel bars, just going straight up into handstand on the parallel bars. And that, even for me, coming from my handstands and being really good at them, trying to go up into the handstand on the parallel bars would just freak me out because it's so high up. But he had no fear, remembered the movement patterns and just went straight up. He actually also did a muscle up, which upset me, because he hasn't done a muscle up probably since he was before 19, and he goes to his first time at the gym and then just does a muscle up. But I won't hold that against him. But it's actually inspiring to me, because not only is he coming back to a sport that he obviously loves and still has an interest in, but he's still able to do everything. And of course he doesn't necessarily have the conditioning to keep up with the whole session, but the motor patterns are still there. And that's why I think gymnastics actually, or calisthenics, is a brilliant way of training. It's so integral throughout the body, and it's so functional that you can do anything within reason. You can actually do anything. So yeah, I think that was a really important thing to touch on. It excites me, and it's what I'm trying to push out there, is to get people doing calisthenics or bodyweight movements, or at least incorporate it in their day-to-day training. Because even when I was a track cyclist, doing calisthenics in the way of handstand progressions and building up my core strength had a massive transfer to my sport. And there's the two sports that are completely unrelated, but not where the body's concerned. Okay, so yeah, that's all I'm going to leave with the video today. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you guys soon. Obviously, please like and subscribe, and thank you.